name is Mark from Safaricom. This is my team. This is a research, design, and innovation team. We drive innovation in the company through various programs that we do. And one of them is actually this, where we get to engage with our stakeholders through participating in the hackathons, doing masterclasses and webinars. Today we'll be covering AI. So as we use AI, or in this age of AI, how can we make AI work for us? How do we make sure that humans are the center of it? So that's what we'll be discussing today. We all know artificial intelligence, but in a nutshell, what is it? Of course, it is technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human intelligence and problem-solving capabilities. Why should we use AI? Part of the conversation starts with reasoning and problem solving. It can develop methods for dealing with uncertainty and making intuitive judgments. And this is a very good reason why we use AI to help us solve our problems. Knowledge representation is another space where we use AI. We have so much knowledge out there. How do we arrange it, or how do we make sure that it works for us? And so we have AI do the knowledge representation. Of course, we have planning and decision making, learning, NLP, which is natural language processing, perception, social intelligence, general intelligence. All these are just examples or spaces where AI comes in for us, and where AI is very much applicable to all of us. And so as we get into this space, I would like us to think about now putting humans at the center of AI. As we build all these AI solutions, how do we make sure that us as humans are at the center? So what are the guidelines that we should have to make sure that AI is in place to work for us? What are the ethical concerns that we can put in place to make sure that AI sticks to a certain way of operating, whereby it is safe for everyone to use? And so we'll be looking at, human-centered design. And human-centered design, it's an approach that prioritizes the needs and preferences and the values of people throughout the development of AI systems. So as we build these AI systems, I would like us to, prioritize human needs. These solutions that we are building should be there to enable us or free us from, of course, the mundane and repetitive tasks. The first cases of AI is automations and RPA and chatbots that come on to do the daily or the mundane tasks that we would like to avoid. But apart from that, how can we further get AI to work for different or more human-centered issues? And I think even as we think of this, we can imagine of spaces where AI has not yet penetrated to, or jobs where AI has not come in through, but eventually it will. So how can we go ahead and make sure that as these solutions come through, they are human-centered? And so we'll be taking a deep dive of the principles of human-centered design in AI. So the key principles of human-centered design, of course, number one is usually the user. As we talk about human-centered design, we have to basically just start or make sure the starting point is our users. Users could be, and I know in your space you call them clients, in your clients, your customers. So as we do human-centered design, it is very important for us to always go back to the starting point, which is the user. We need to sit with the user, interact with the user, get to know where they're coming from, what are their thoughts, what are the challenges that are facing, what are the scenarios, or what are the aspects that are affecting them, so that when you're building a solution, you'll be able to have the right approach of making sure that the user, you started with the user, making sure that the next steps or every other decision that you make comes from the user. And we look at this, I think, in the next slide as we discuss design thinking, because human-centered design is also driven by design thinking. Of course, and HCD or human-centered design in AI also looks at ethical considerations of AI. How ethical is it? Is it good for everyone? What are the guidelines that we use to make sure that it is fair? Is it fair for everyone that we are solving for? So those are the approaches that we have to consider. And because we have to study how humans behave And as we build AI, we make sure that AI also understands that this is how humans behave and this is how they feel. And so we make sure that it is guided to be ethical, in its approach to responding to humans or solving for humans. Again, AI systems usually work together and they usually learn from us. So as we build these solutions for them, we need them to be able to know how to respond appropriately as well. Somebody was telling us a story of how they interact with the AI and they always start their sentences with please because they want to teach that AI to be kind or to be, polite. So they're looking at a scenario whereby the AI could learn from that behavior. So every time they start a conversation with the chat GPTs or the copilots, they always start with polite words like kindly, please, because they're just teaching it to be polite. And so those are just some of the considerations that we look at. Is it fair? And then, of course, in terms of collaboration, how are we involving all the other stakeholders and all the other users when we're building these solutions? It's important for us to always make sure that we involve as many stakeholders as possible when we're doing a solution, because they will bring in their expertise, they'll bring in their knowledge, and they'll make sure that as we do the system, it is fueled or the foundation is based on a wealth of experience. In terms of the iterative development, this just speaks to going through a process of building and rebuilding and refining the build until we have it right. It means that we can have 2 or 3 runs. We call this agile sprints, and in agile we have to go through sprint 1, confirm and repeat. So this is also part of HCD and making sure that we are aligned. So we have to do the iterative development. Again, we'll speak about accessibility and inclusivity. So is AI, how do we make sure that it's accessible to all? And how do we make sure that it's inclusive to all? Again, trust and transparency, very big concern. How do we make sure that uh, as we build AI, it's trustworthy? Yeah, and this is also a very big concern for users or for humans as well. Is it trustworthy to use AI? Is it okay to give it the private and confidential information? And how transparent is this process, and how transparent is AI in responding to humans as well? So as we build our solution, we have to make sure that trust is it's crucial. We must make sure it's there and it's embedded in the system. We also have to make sure that the system is transparent. And finally, in terms of empathy and emotional intelligence, how do you make sure that AI shows or responds to human emotions in a way that's empathetical? How do you guide it to understand human feelings? So all these are considerations and are principles that we have to apply as we do human-centered design in AI. And of course, the good problems for AI are usually driven by, of course, number one, I'll start with data. You have to get a lot of data involved as you're building a solution, because you have to get a lot. You have to do a lot of research. You have to do a lot of data gathering. Of course, we have to talk about user needs. We also have to talk about the technology that is available and that's feasible. And once you have these 3 pillars come together, you'll get a sweet spot. And this sweet spot is where now you will be able to have a perfect or an ideal solution as you build the AI solution. And as you do this, you'll get the necessary buy-in. And how do we get this necessary buy-in? We'll be able to form mental models. We'll be able to have explainability and trust. We'll also have to have good feedback and controls. And of course, we'll be able to overcome and have our errors and failures. And this will ensure that we have a very good coverage of what problems we are solving and how the whole ecosystem is well catered for. So in terms of examples or use cases we have in our lives, I think most of us have or use Spotify or have heard of Spotify. It's a music streaming platform. And Spotify has used AI to personalize user experiences in the way it recommends the music based on our listening habits. For example, if you listen to a specific genre of music, next time it will keep on suggesting this. And this is just an example of how they learn from the human, and the algorithm now caters to that human's or that ideal person's taste. And of course, their design team focuses on making these combinations engaging, simple. They'll give you a simple poll or a simple pop-up that just asks you a simple question. It's fun. And at the end of the day, you don't know that you're just curating a very nice playlist for yourself. At the end of the day is when you realize that your playlist is quite nice and it's quite unique. Another example is IBM's. IBM apparently have a fashion or are involved in the fashion industry, and they have collaborated with fashion houses to develop AI systems, fashion trends, customer preferences, and social media data. And of course, this helps the designers to create collections that resonate with customers and with their consumers, making sure that now the AI is blended with the human creativity. And finally, a very good example that we all use is Google Assistant and Google Photos. I think for most of us who have Android phones, we've interacted with this feature where you get to see Google suggest videos and pictures for you. It can even group them for you and do lots of activities for you. And this is just an example of how AI has been involved in the user experience. Of course, the way it pops up and the way the videos are done, all that is driven by AI. And quickly, just to jump in, and I don't know if Lillian, you're ready. Maybe you can take us through the next one or two slides as we speak about human-centered design.
Hi, Tim. My name is Lillian. From the innovation team, I work with Mark very closely to just make sure that the innovation ideas that we have, are actualized. And I believe that all of us here are innovators. We are all wanting to come up with a solution to solve our problems, in our different spaces. We are all innovators. And if we are innovators, then it means in one way or another, we have come across or we have used design thinking. So it is really super important for us to just understand what is this design thinking when we are coming up with a solution. So successful solutions rely on what Mark has taken us through, and that is human-centered design research. And part of that is really including other elements, and that is where design thinking comes in, which helps in achieving that balance where people find the sweet spot of feasibility of the solution that we are building. How feasible is it? In design thinking, we're also able to look at the viability. How viable is that solution? And we also look at the desirability. Is it desired? Is it the people that we are building for? Do they desire the solution? Is it going to resolve their issues? So all this is done considering the real needs and the desires of people. So really, what is design thinking? In simple terms, design thinking is the philosophy. It's a philosophy and a set of tools that help us resolve problems creatively. So this is the first thing that we just need to understand, that it is a philosophy and a set of tools. So philosophy, a mindset, then in it we add a set of tools, and then we're able to solve the problems that we have around us creatively. When we are to create something new, or when we want to solve a problem, or when we are trying to solve even a very complex problem, you can use design thinking to that solution. There are many other processes that can be used to solve the problems that we have, but design thinking, and the reason why it is preferred is because it focuses on the human-centered side of creative problem solving. So the design thinking that we are talking about looks at all the creative problem solving through the lens of a human-centered eye or lens. It is more about empathizing and figuring out who are we designing for? What are their needs? Design thinking will then help us solve these problems. It will help us innovate based on the needs that we identify from the people that we want to solve the problems for. So there are really 5 main steps, and that is what you can see: the empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And I will start with the first one, yeah? And one thing that I would like to mention that is that even if these steps may seem very specific, they are very, very flexible, and every design thinker does it in a different way. Every design thinker, every one of us here, if you're given a problem and we have to apply design thinking, we will do it in a totally different way, but we will follow the 5 steps. And quickly, the first step, as you can see there, is empathize. And in this step, it's purely about understanding what the people that we are trying to design the product for, who they are, getting into their shoes, and gathering information. How do we gather this information? It can be in terms of interviews, it can be creating personas, just really trying to figure out who are we making this solution for, or who are we building this solution for. Understanding what is their problem, what do these people do, what is it that they interact with, what is it that they are lacking in their daily activities, really wanting to empathize with the people that you're designing for. As I mentioned earlier, getting into their shoes to really understand them. So if it is a community, visiting the community in their natural environment and understanding them from that, interacting with them and understanding them from that natural environment. And the second step is define. Now, in this step, you're taking everything that you have learned, the data that you have collected in step 1, that is in the empathize step, you're using that data to define. You're breaking down and coming up with conclusion about what are the user needs based on the data that you have collected. What are the insights that you've come up with from maybe the interviews that you conducted, and so on and so forth. So in this stage, it's just more of a data analysis, a lot of data analysis, coming up with the insights from the data that you have collected in the empathize stage. So, and that takes us now to step number 3, where we ideate. You have gone through step 1 and 2. You have learned quite a lot through step 1 and 2. And from what you have learned, you now want to come up with ideas of resolving these problems. So that is where you ideate. And in ideation, you bring people together so that you can present the insights that you collected in empathize and define stage. You can have brainstorming sessions, collecting ideas, and in brainstorming sessions, it's where you bring people together, sharing ideas that match with what you learned in the previous step. And once you have these ideas, once you have consolidated a number of ideas, you then proceed to step number 4, which is a prototype. Now, what you're doing in this stage is that you're breaking down the select few ideas that you collected or that you came up with and building them, picking the ideas worth making something, more realistic, and really turning this into simple and testable prototypes. So these prototypes are not fully designed. They are not complete. They are not really something you can sell out there. So also meaning they're not fully coded. We call them an MVP, minimum viable product. It's something that you have quickly built together from the ideas that you've come up with from the ideate stage, and a quick solution which you can be able to take back to a group of people, real users, who can be able to test and give feedback. And testing now becomes the final step. And in this phase, you're taking the prototype, what you have created based on what you collected in step 3 and 4. And now that you have a prototype, you take it to the users. You take it to the users, and these users they'll be a defined group, a defined group of users who you want to give the prototype. They test, they give you feedback. And once they give you feedback, it doesn't stop from there. Because remember, what you have created is just a prototype. It's not something that can be able to take to the market. So once you have taken the prototype to the users and you have collected the feedback, you then go back to step number 2, you define again. You need to define and see out of the feedback that you have collected, what insights have come out of that, and you bring them back to the define phase. So out of that, the define phase, you then go to ideate phase, where you come up with new and more ideas. You build prototype again, and then you keep testing. So that cycle continues until you have a solution which the users, remember, we are building solutions which are very user-centric. So until the user is comfortable with that solution, then we can be able now to build and go to the market with that solution. So that is the design thinking steps. And these steps really are very, very flexible, as I had mentioned initially. So they're not very defined. And different people will go through these steps in different ways, different durations. There are those who will do their design thinking in 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 year, and so on and so forth. So very flexible, but giving great solutions which are able to solve our many problems that we have in our society, in our community, and even as we hack, getting good results out of the hackathon. I think that is it, Mark, from me. Unless there's a question, I can hand it back to you, Mark.
I'll just mention that there are many use cases in the legal profession. Of course, client-centered legal services, innovative legal drafting, access to justice, where we are designing user-friendly legal forms, improving online dispute resolution platforms, and also creating accessible legal information resources. So these are all opportunities where we can be able to apply design thinking and human-centered design as we build AI systems, of course, in community learning and in the interdisciplinary collaboration.